People have been asking me to cover the new update for the hit single mod, and I have to admit, this is one of the best mods that I've played in quite a while, and it has some interesting lore as well. Now, the first thing that I want to note is that none of the storylines in this mod are connected, meaning that each character basically has their own lore that is completely independent of each other, which I think is important to point out, especially since people believe that this version of Boyfriend, who is called Yourself, is actually Lord X. Now, while that would make sense, since when you consider the fact that Lord X can take on the form of any person or creature that he chooses, it isn't actually the case for this character. Yourself is a version of Boyfriend that is from a universe where Girlfriend actually dies in some kind of tragic accident. Boyfriend is not able to cope with the loss of her, and he ends up losing his mind and also not really taking care of his body or his clothes, which is why he looks like crap. And for the people wondering why he's so tall, it's actually because Boyfriend is very tall. In the FNF universe, he's always portrayed as kind of being tiny, but in reality, he's actually huge. He looks a lot like Yourself, meaning that Boyfriend is a tall, skinny 19-year-old. Another fact that I found interesting here is that in the cutscene where Yourself gets a solo, we actually see the alternate version of Girlfriend, who is called Herself, for just a moment. It's hard to see, but the red light that appears around him is actually Girlfriend. It almost seems like he manages to keep a piece of her spirit with him at all times because he just can't seem to let her go, and possibly because Girlfriend has always been with Boyfriend, so maybe she just couldn't let go of him either. But unfortunately, we don't really get a lot of information about her in this mod, so right now that's just my theory. Now, I know a lot of people are wondering why Yourself is able to change his size, and I think it's just to show us that he actually is Boyfriend from a different timeline, which is why he can look like Boyfriend and also mimic some of his lines. And lastly, I think the inspiration for Yourself is actually from an older character called Lookalike. I remember covering him like a year or two ago, but I think he ended up being scrapped. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think he was a character in like an EXE mod. Now in the free play, we see a lot of characters that have popped up in other mods, but with a slight addition to their backstories. The first character being Lord X. And I think I've covered this guy enough for most of you to know that he's basically the main antagonist in the Sonic PC port and is a extraterrestrial monster that is extremely powerful and has the power to take on the form of anybody or anything that he wants. And in this mod, he technically has two songs, the first one being called Trickle, and this is where we see Lord X battling against Boyfriend. And you can all probably notice that the background of this world seems to be fading away, and this is because Lord X's vessel, aka his body, is finally rotting away. Now in the end, Lord X says that he's grateful to be getting a new vessel, implying that Boyfriend will take over as his new host, but the song ends before we actually get to see if it happens or not. With that being said though, I think it's safe to say that in this universe, Boyfriend and Lord X are actually now one entity. The next song is called Joyous, and this one, from my understanding, has no connection to the last song. Now in this song, Lord X is able to escape the digital world and enter into our reality, and his main goal is to take out his creator, who is named Joe Doughboy, with Lord X's goal being to stop the creator from ending the storyline of the soulless Sonic series. This way Lord X will basically be able to live forever. And unfortunately, Lord X does manage to actually take out his creator and then disappears, meaning that nobody can find him. It's kind of ironic that the song is titled Joyous, but I guess it is joyous for Lord X, considering that he got everything that he wanted. The next character that we see in the mod is called No More Innocence, and his backstory for this mod is connected to Daddy Dearest. Now apparently Daddy Dearest and Innocence were related, which is possible considering that they are both demons. But in typical Daddy Dearest fashion, he ended up betraying Innocence and trapping him inside a Sonic the Hedgehog video game. Now I can't find any reason as to why Daddy Dearest would do that, but we know that he's done the same thing or worse to others, so I'm sure no one is surprised that he actually did this to Innocence. Now as to be expected, Innocence didn't take that disrespect lightly, and in order to get revenge, he kidnapped Girlfriend when she was a baby, basically dragging her into the video game world, forcing Daddy Dearest to follow them and basically fight for her life. I think the cutscene at the beginning of the song is showing what Innocence's world actually looks like. Now, I know a lot of people want to know if Daddy Dearest was successful, and while we don't actually get to see it in the song, I would like to think that he was able to save Girlfriend, but since this may be taking place in a different timeline, it's hard to say, especially since Innocence is very strong. I made a video talking about Innocence's lore about a year ago, and I'm going to put a clip here just so you understand what Daddy Dearest is actually dealing with. And Innocence is actually a Japanese spirit that feeds off the happiness of children. The children that he feeds on the most are children who are fans of Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, the good news here is that he doesn't actually eat the children. He just eats that happy feeling that they get when they're playing Sonic the Hedgehog. The bad news here, though, is that he also makes the children even more addicted to the video game. So basically, he takes kids who are already playing this game a lot and he makes it to where the game is kind of like a drug. And if the kids don't actually play the game, it's almost as if they go through a physical type of pain. The game is no longer something that they do in their free time or just for pleasure. It becomes something that they have to do. So while Innocence may not be as dangerous as some of the other characters that we've covered on the channel, he is definitely anything but innocent. Whenever he finds himself in a new home, he has nothing but ill intent and malice towards the children that also reside in that home. Now, the backstory for how people actually found out about Innocence is kind of interesting. Basically, when Sonic the Hedgehog 2 came out in Japan, there were a bunch of reports about these fake cartridges that were also being picked up by children. When you actually put the game in, it was obvious that they were just mediocre copies of Sonic the Hedgehog. If you look at Innocence, you can obviously tell that he doesn't look anything like Sonic. But the thing that was frightening is that when people actually came into contact with the game, even if they just touched it, they would start to display some pretty bad symptoms such as intense headaches. They would also start to lose their eyesight and start to have these weird stomach aches. And the worst symptom was that some kids, especially after they had played the game for about a week, they suddenly started losing the ability to walk or even stand up. And now that we know how Innocence works, we can probably understand that the reason that he takes away their ability to walk is so that they'll have to sit in bed and play that game even more. The sad part here is that most of these kids are too young to even understand that anything is wrong, so they tell their parents that they're fine and all they want to do is continue playing this game, having no idea that this evil spirit is basically compelling them to play. The next character we see in the free play is called Starved Squidward, or aka Starward, and he's basically like an alternate version of Starved Eggman. Now, I believe that the backstory for this Starved Squidward is the same or similar to the original. So it's basically like Plankton is trying to get the Krabby Patty secret formula, and in order to do so, he gets a soul-corrupting clarinet from the Flying Dutchman and King Neptune, and then he gives this item to Squidward in order to corrupt him. With this newfound power, Squidward basically captures most of the people in Bikini Bottom, either trying to eat them or just take them out in general. And hearing all the corruption going on in Bikini Bottom, Mr. Krabs actually wakes up and he puts on his anti-ghost armor because he believes that this is Plankton's doing, and he goes and challenges Squidward. Now, in the original story, I believe that Squidward actually wins against Mr. Krabs and then betrays Plankton and eats him. But in this version, I believe they all die because the house basically collapses, killing everyone. I'll make sure to put a card up though if you want to hear how the original story goes. Now, I know there's also a game that pops up in this mod as well, but I'm going to leave that for somebody else to cover because it is a bit confusing. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this video on the screen here. Subscribe today to become a member of the Orseofkorse, and we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Peace, peace.